And we're going to ask that you all please stay muted while we are in progress. We will be doing a Q&A afterwards, and in that case, you can put your comments or questions in the chat. So with that, I will hand things over to Ruth.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see you all, and it's too bad that we can't see you in person in the studio. This has been a really rough time for artist studios. Of course, you know that. And we're so looking forward to the time when COVID is a distant memory and we all know how to deal with it and we see you in person. Manhattan Graphics, just to say a word about us, we are based in Manhattan. We are over 30 years old. It's a cooperative printmaking studio where artists participate in running the studio and managing the studio. And I want to acknowledge today our management team. They're all present. Kay Sarantonio, Anita Cardona, Bruno Nadalin, and Robin Sheeran, who you already met. And they are doing a fabulous job of reopening the studio and setting up classes and making sure that everything's working. And we do actually now have a member show on the walls. So we hope that you will all find time when you're in New York to come by to make prints with us and to see our studio. We're very proud of it and proud that we have made it through to the other side of COVID and we're getting going again. With respect to the mini print show, this is not our first juried show or not our first mini juried show. We are so delighted that John Morning agreed to be our juror. John is an artist himself, a painter and a printmaker, mostly silk screens. He does large work, so I teased him that it would be a challenge and fun to jury mini prints, and he'll talk to you about how he felt about that. John is a great friend of Manhattan Graphics and the printmaking community in New York City. He served for a while on our board of trustees. We were so honored to have him, and he was the founding president of IPCNY, the International Print Center of New York. He continues to be very active in the printmaking world and in community service. He's on the board, for example, of Henry Street Settlement House, and he's just does a lot of service for our whole community. So John was given all of the submissions, which came from over 300 artists around the world. And he made the final choice of 110 prints to include in this show, and he picked the prize winners who you will meet later. So without further ado, I want to welcome John and take it away, John.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm very grateful for your generous remarks, and also to you and Kay and Robin for asking me to be involved in this opportunity. Without torturing the idea of miniature, let me say it's been a privilege to have a bird's eye view, if you will, of printmaking activity and to realize how vital and vibrant the tradition is even today, though printmaking dates back for many centuries, as you know. The fact that there were 300 plus submissions was an indication of how vital this field is today. And narrowing it to 110 finalists that you see today was not easy to go from there to 3 winners. And though I think any choices can be subject to some debate, I hope that you will find some merit in the choices that we've made, and that they will lead to further interest and involvement, both as viewers and as participants in printmaking. There were certain tensions or even comparisons that were obvious to me in looking at this group of works. The tension or competition between style in terms of realist and abstract, and also the further tension between black and white and color. And obviously the use of color is a key element in the
I
impact.
know it's awfully bright. I wonder if maybe you should lower the screen.
I didn't hear that.
I don't know what that. I don't know what that was. And so if somebody has a comment, please put it in the chat. Go ahead, John.
I was talking about the competition or dichotomy, if you will, that we see between abstract and literal works, works in black and white and in color. And this competition, I think, enlivened much of the work that we saw. Contrary to the popular saying, size doesn't matter in this field because these miniature prints have power and an impact that goes far beyond their size. We saw that demonstrated over and over. The best works, despite their scale, were intriguing, creative, varied, and compelling. Their impact was far greater than the dimensions might suggest. In this work of limited measure, we see how meaning and expression exist far beyond physical size. Because in these works we discern landscapes, painterly compositions, mural-like proportions, and details of larger scale objects that gain from minute examination. I want to thank again Manhattan Graphic Center for bringing attention to the relevance of this subtle and rewarding aspect of the printmaker's craft, and as an introduction to future works of continued strength and beauty. Thank you.
So what we were going to do now is Kay is going to share the screen with you all and show the works, all of them. They're all on the website and they're all for sale. And so you can scroll through at your leisure and show them to your friends. And if there are any comments or questions about the work, you can put them in the chat. I also want to point out that the techniques used are all listed when you go through the more information. That was mine.
This
Thank
is
you, Kay. That is just a beautiful display of the variety that you can get with all of the different printmaking techniques, which, by the way, if you don't know, we teach and have facilities to make at Manhattan Graphic Center. I saw etchings, monoprints, woodcut, wood engraving, photogravure, etchings. I don't know if I saw silkscreen. Did I, John? Were there any silk screens?
You did, yes.
I did. Well, there you are. Yeah. John, did you want to make any other comments before we announce the winners?
Well, I would just say that generally, I think this is an amazing exhibit because of the variety of not only techniques, but styles and artists. It suggests, as I said before, that printmaking is certainly a very vital occupation today. And I think it's wonderful that so many artists are attracted to it. You might think that in today's age of technology that this might be a forgotten pastime, as it were, but it's not the case at all. I think the work that we see here is very exciting and unusual in its expanse of styles and range.
We'd like now to introduce the first prize winner, Evan Charney, and take a look at his print, his prize-winning print, which was Diana's cat. It is a wood engraving. And John's going to say a few words about why he selected it. There we go. And then we'll ask Evan to talk a little bit about his practice and what he had in mind.
Good. I look forward to hearing from Evan about his work. It was very difficult to choose a first place winner. I decided that perhaps it should be something that is obviously a print and obviously in black and white, because that harks back to the very beginnings of the craft. I also thought there was a certain ambiguity here, at least to me. I'm not a cat fancier, so I couldn't tell whether this was a house cat or a leopard, but that perhaps is something that I'll find out. But one of the advantages of looking at this work on our computers is that we see it enlarged, and here this work takes on even more graphic and abstract qualities. I think in that sense, it's just an outstanding print, looking back at the very origins of the craft. It's carried out in what I call a symphony of abstract lines. And it also benefits from the extreme focus, which enhances the miniature dimensions.
Kay, can you ask Evan to unmute?
Evan, could you unmute?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you too.
Yes, we can hear you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you do your printmaking and why you chose wood engraving and whatever else you'd like to say about the origin of this print.
Thank you very much. Well, you'd asked me to comment a little on the technique because that many of the prints were wood engravings. And wood engraving was very popular in the early 19th century, where it was used for illustration in books and periodicals until completely replaced by photography. It then went into decline and was revived in the early 20th century as a fine art technique, largely by a group of printmakers in Great Britain. And in fact, the British printmakers are still outstanding. And there are two lovely prints in this exhibit by Anne Desmet, who's a widely admired printmaker. At any rate, the technique, you're familiar with wood cuts, which are carved on the plank surface of wood. Wood engravings are carved on the end grain of wood, using hardwoods like boxwood, maple, fruit wood that hold a fine line. It's getting to be difficult because some of these are quite expensive, although maple is quite widely used. Boxwood is hard to get. And so there are other materials that have been introduced, including resin grave, which is an epoxy. And for my print, this is, I think, the print that you're seeing. I used Corian, which is a kitchen countertop material and holds the image, I think, quite well. In fact, if you've got a neighbor who's replacing their kitchen sinks or kitchen counters, you can ask them to reserve a block and you can cut it up into users. Well, once you selected your block, the next task is to darken it with ink of some kind. Wood India ink works well. And then the images can be drawn directly on the block or use a transfer of some sort. and it will accept a photo image as well. And then it's up to the carving tools that are used. And these are the burins. I think you can see that. That's comes to a sharp point, and so you can easily incise in the block. And this elliptical tint tool called a spit sticker, which carves well on curves, and you can go back into the original line and widen it. One of the privileges in printmaking is that you can say the word spit sticker frequently. There are a few other types of tools, this diamond tip or a stippler. And in a print that I'm working on, I think you can see that you can use the stippler to achieve the blocks. At any rate, other materials needed are a sandbag, which you rest the block on so it carves more easily, and perhaps a magnifier and a good light. Well, once the image is incised, it's lightly inked. Most woodworkers use oil-based inks. I like Calligro Safe Wash, which is an oil-based but water-soluble ink, which makes cleanup somewhat easier. And then I don't know what kind of presses you have at Manhattan Graphics, but the old letter presses are wonderful, Albion or Vandercook, but etching presses work well also. I have a Conrad etching press. Well, the technique is actually a really straightforward one. You could learn the basic technique in a weekend workshop, as I did a decade ago, and then spend the rest of your life trying to improve and hone your skills. At any rate, all you need is a steady hand and a somewhat compulsive nature, and you're in business. Well, I'm grateful to Manhattan Graphics and the excellent staff, and thank you very much, John, for selecting this print.
Well, thank you too for that brief course on your work. It was highly informative and interesting, and you have used these techniques to very great advantage.
Thank you.
So I just have one question, which is, so you ink the surface and the white is where you carved out, is that right? So this is.
That's right. It's yeah, unlike etching, it's a white line technique. Here's a sample block that I use for practice, and you can see the carved lines or stippled lines are white.
Okay.
It's a rather, I might comment, unforgiving technique. Errors are very difficult or impossible to correct. So I like to do proofs steadily, sneaking up on the final print. You just have to know when to stop.
Ruth, I think it's very interesting that your own print, which we might take a look at some point, has very much the same idea of white lines against a black background.
Although,
Sí, pensé,
although it's
no, porque tenemos uno de esos es suficiente.
it's actually, mine is engraving where I used white ink on
Más
black.
limón.
So,
Sí.
so
A very different technique, but a similar effect.
yeah,
Pusiste. Lleva bastante, para mí lleva mucho.
I think that Claudia Rothman, I think you need to be muted. Let's move now to our second place winner, Carol Struve. If you could move to her print, Spring Series 3, which is a very different process. It's a monotype. Yeah, there's all the 3 Spring Series. John, do you want to say something about how you came to choose this one?
Oh, I would like very much to. It seemed only fair that having had a highly realistic print in black and white for the reasons that I stated earlier, that we certainly had to honor the history and the tradition of abstract prints. And it was difficult to narrow it down to an abstract print, a single abstract print, but also one that was in color, in contrast to the first choice. And I thought that Carol's work filled the bill very, very well. I thought it was exuberant, vibrant, balanced in its color, and it had a range of textures throughout the shapes that I thought were very interesting. And one other thing that impressed me about this print was its scale. I thought that even in this small size, it could be enlarged to huge dimensions and still not lose any of its power or appeal. It's an extraordinary work, both in print and in color.
Okay, can you ask Carol to unmute?
Carol, are you there?
Come on, Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for getting my name pronounced correctly, my last name. A lot of people don't get it. And thank you, John, for selecting my prints, and this one in particular. This is a technique. It's called water-based monotype that I actually learned at Women's Studio Workshop in Rosendale. I live in Kingston, New York, and Karen Lederer, who has taught the workshop at Manhattan Graphics, was the person who taught the workshop. And I'm trained as a painter. So this particular, and I've been doing a lot of, I do monoprints. But this particular technique really opened up my world, and I love water media. I love drawing. A lot of, I have these pieces in the back that are hiding my books. I use a lot of stencils, and so the technique, it's intuitive. The color selection is intuitive. It's a lot of improvising. So the background is a piece of newsprint that I've used Stabilo, chubby color water soluble pencils to, I used a ruler and I made these newsprint pieces of paper with this color and texture on it. Then it's hard to show you, the shapes or the forms are painted, they're Duralar that's been slightly primed with gumma arabic, and then they're just painted with watercolor. So I have this vocabulary of shapes and forms, or pieces of Duralar that have been painted with different colors. And then I set my side on a background, and then I just start cutting shapes, or I might have a shape pre-cut, and I just start putting things together on the plate. And then this is really strange. My studio is in the 3rd floor attic of an old Victorian house. I'm really hot right now. And under the eaves, and it has a lot of angles. But anyway, I have a small Noland proof press. And I don't know if any of you know what it's a bed. I think it can accommodate a 13 by 36, 13 wide, maybe 24 to 36 inches long. The roller on top. The roller goes across the top, and they used to put letters. It's a letter press, proof press. And so I've adjusted the bed. I did some research. So now I have it set so that I put my plate down. Well, anyway, all the watercolor has to dry. Everything has to dry. Pardon? Everything has to be dry before.
Aquí está como una misa. Eso.
And then, so I have the shapes cut up, everything's dry, I put it on the plate. It's a little PTEG, very thin plate. I set the paper on the plate, I set the shapes on the plate. I use Johannet paper, it's very thin. I wet it, spritz it, just get it damp, put it on top of the plate, and roll the roller across the top. So it took me a while to figure out the packing correct, but anyway, it really, this technique has been a game changer for me because I love watercolor. I love working intuitively, and it just is I love color. I taught college.
All right, just give us 1 minute while we get everyone else muted. Sorry about that, Carol.
Okay, I taught college art for 20 years, and colors are one of my favorite classes to teach. So I used to work in oil paint, but now I love, I really love it. And the pieces behind me are examples of larger prints I've made. I love stencils too. I have a whole set, I keep all my stencils. It's a lot, Anyway, and I have used the Caligo water-based oil inks too. I mean, you can use that with. So anyway, because of my press the size of my press. I mean, if I want to work larger, I rent press time at Women's Studio Workshop in Rosendale. Otherwise, I do trace prints. It's what I call kitchen table printing. A lot of that. So I think that's probably it.
Carol, I have one question, which is how many times did this go through the press?
Once. And see that? And I was explaining, I'm teaching, I'm having so much fun. I'm teaching a class called Art Expressions to seniors at this local art center. It's a real hoot. And I was explaining to them this procedure. And one person, I had a print, I showed him the print, I explained how I did it, and he goes, so you basically make a collage on the plate and then put the paper on and go through the press. And that's pretty much what it ends up being. It's one time through the press. I have done multiple plate prints, like the prints behind me, the grounds are done first, I'll do those first. But so it's one pass through.
There's a question to you from Terry Bart. How do you avoid a white line around the stencil?
I think that might have to do with pressure, and the stencils are it's thin Duralar, and the pressure, because I don't have, I don't have a press that I can adjust, the pressure except by adjusting the packing. I think that, and the stencils are very thin. I think if they were thicker, I would get a white line, and that might be something I want to think about if I want a white line, actually. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a good question.
I think this shows the adaptability, though, of prints. The fact that these are so painterly in appearance and inspired by a painter shows the extent to which you can bring to printmaking almost any kind of inspiration or effect.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's why I love the monoprints. I'll stop after. I first learned about monoprinting when I was a resident at the Vermont Studio Center in 1999, and Sarah Amos, who you might know her work, she's very incredible. She's a Tamarin trained printmaker. I hired her to teach me monoplate printmaking while I was there on a residency for painting, and that was it. I mean, ever since then, I've been making prints. So thank you so much. Also, this has been a huge boost. I just came into retirement, and it's been hard to get back. I was a nurse for 50 years also. And I was just, kind of stumbling and trying to resurrect my studio practice after I retired from nursing. So this has been great boost. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I point out that we teach monoprint. We've had different people teach it over the years, but you should all watch for it. And we have dry point coming up in the fall, which is another immediate technique. I'd like to turn now to our third prize winner, Kay Miller's Deep Sea 1. Kay Miller, unfortunately, is traveling and couldn't be with us today. But this is her print that John selected and gave third prize, and this is an etching. John, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, with pleasure. It seemed only fair to have an abstract print in black and white, just as we had an abstract in color. I like this especially because it is so contemporary in its style, the shapes and the techniques, endlessly fascinating in the play between not only the values, but the shapes and textures. It's a strong example of today's type of imagery in a very traditional medium. As such, I think this is a tribute to the enduring hold on the imagination of artists in the printmaking. Just in what we've seen today, it would be hard to typify any one style or approach to printmaking. And I think this variety is what's so exciting and also so encouraging about the future of the medium.
I don't know, of course, and we don't have the artist to comment, but it looks to me like it was done with soft ground. You have crayon kind of markings, texture, soft texture, and one way that I would make that would be with a soft ground. I'm very sorry that Kay Miller couldn't be with us. But I'd like to open it up now to any questions or comments. And if you would put them in the chat. Am I able to see the chat?
I can reshare any images folks want to look at as well.
Okay.
Ruth, could I suggest one thing, that in the case of one of the finalists, that you click on the more info
Sure.
key that is shown with them, because I think it gives some detail
It
about.
gives, right, it gives the
what we're looking
dimensions and it gives the medium and the price, right?
exactly inside.
Right, so maybe we could just look at K's for a minute. Yeah, so there, it says etching 3x3 and the paper size. Mhm. Doesn't say soft ground or hard ground, but we can guess. Yeah,
The
and
fact that this says it's the quantity is one, does this mean it is a single impression?
not necessarily. I think we were each asked when we submitted to say how many prints were available, but Kay and Anita, maybe you tell where that information can be found?
Yeah, it in the more info section, some artists have one of an edition available, others have several from the same edition. And then of course, some are monotypes or monoprints, and there's only one available.
Yes, and once the print sells, then it will say sold out, so there's none available after that.
My assumption was that in most instances, these are editions of more than one. Is that not the case?
It's hard to edition a monoprint, so that would not be the case. I don't know. You all looked,
Cyanotypes, of course, there are, we have some cyanotype and some monotype and some monoprint, I think, that are all,
single,
not edition. Mhm.
I'm gonna just jump in here. So some have multiples available and some not. It was up to the artist to let us know if there were more copies available. So in many cases when they're monotypes, obviously there would not be, but even some of the others, they indicated that there were not any more available.
I'd like to point out also the mezzotints. We have a number of mezzotints. I think those portraits on the left that you're showing right now, I think those are mezzotints, right? Can you click on that to just see? Yeah, mezzotint. So mezzotint is not for the faint of heart, but it is a beautiful technique. You get beautiful blacks and grays and whites. And I believe that, well, from time to time, Fred Mershimer, who's on our faculty and is one of the real masters of the technique, teaches. And then that Robert Kipnis that you just went by, go back, is also a mezzotint. And he has spoken about his technique He gave an artist talk at Manhattan Graphics and explained how he works. And that's another tent as well. So really the variety of printmaking techniques is sort of dazzling to me.
Ruth, you might remind us, what were the limits in terms of size? What did you determine for submission? What were the limits?
I think the limits, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it was 3 by 3, right? Or a total of 9 square inches. So it could be 1 inch by 9 inches. It could be 3 by 3. It could be smaller, 2 by 5 or something. But it was 9 square inches total, and a number of people, of course, like that one of the cathedral or whatever that is, made their own shapes as long as the total image was within that. So that's also very wonderful use of the limits that were put on us. I think we have one print that's 1 by 9.
And Ruth, these are silk screens here, I believe.
Those ones are
You had
so.
asked, yes.
Okay.
There may be more in the show as well, but I know that these ones.
Yeah, okay. That's good. There you go. 3 by 3. Mhm. Did anybody else want to comment, make a statement, or ask a question? Well, if not, then I would say that we are very appreciative of spending this time with all of you and letting you share with us in the delight of seeing this exhibit. How long is it going to be on the website, guys?
It's up until August 15.
All right, so please send the link to your friends and encourage them to take a look, encourage them to buy a print. And please also check our website to see what classes are coming up. And when you're in New York City, you know, we invite artists to just come and use our studios. So even if you don't live in New York, but if you're coming to visit, you could come and print for a day or a week. We would love to have you. We're very moderately priced. I think you will find that we're quite competitive with other printmaking studios. And so we would love to have you stop by and look at our studios, see our facility, and come and print with us. And with that, I guess, oh, wait, let me just check because the chat seems to, oh, Cynthia Driver. And Michelle, I just want to point out that we have people, okay, we have people from the UK. Michelle, are you still in France? Yes. I mean, Michelle comes over and prints with us from Paris every year.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so
Can
we
you hear
have
me?
people with us today from the
Yes.
UK.
I have a little bit of trouble putting the audio at the same time, but you can hear my voice.
Yes.
Yeah?
Good,
Yeah,
thank
okay.
you. We also have Lydia Orman from Cologne, Germany. We have the West Terry Vart. No, I'm probably not saying your name right, am I? But I love your prints. She's from Western Canada. Claudia Rothman is from Buenos Aires. So this is very exciting to have so much participation. And it's the one thing that COVID has enabled that we should be grateful for, I suppose, right? Is the technology for all of us to be together. Roger Sutcliffe is from Ottawa. And that Trit. Thank you, Carrie, that Trit. Anybody else from far away? No, I guess that's it, but that's not bad. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oksana Yudakova is from Lithuania. We have Sulema Baka from Montreal. we have Cabrera Cavieres is from Chile. Yeah, so wonderful to have you all with us. Jean, did you want to make a comment?
I did. I want to remind everyone that we have courses online now. So all those people from far away can join us in classes. And a particular class that I really want to highlight is the history of printmaking with Phil Sanders, which I've taken and just can't speak highly enough to just give you the kind of sense John Morning was just giving us about the way some certain prints fit into a certain part of history and what to look for in a lot of historical context for printmaking. So I recommend that class, but we have even some kitchen art classes online as well. Thanks.
Right. And I think we've had LinoCut online that's been quite successful. It's hard, obviously, to do techniques online, but we've had some really wonderful teachers who have pulled it off. God bless. So
I just wanted to make one comment as, working on the back end of this and getting to communicate with some of you and getting to see all of the work coming in and going up on the site. It's just been a really great experience for us on our side, and it's extra special today to get to see some of your names and faces and connect them to the prints that I've been looking at and really enjoying. So thank you for participating, but really thank you for being here as well.
And apparently we had artists from 15 different countries selected for the exhibition. So that really is wonderful to have the reach and to be able to touch people, especially in this time when we can't see you all in person. Okay, well, thank you all so much. Be in touch and do send the link to the show to your friends and your colleagues so that they can enjoy it. And the work is very reasonably priced, and we share the proceeds with the artists and with the Manhattan Graphic Center. So it would be lovely to see you all and to have you participate. I see Nandini is there. She's one of our teachers. It's so wonderful to see all of you here today. Thank you, John, so much for guiding us through this event.
It's been my pleasure, Ruth. I'm very grateful to you, to Kay, Robin, and all the participants today. They've made it very worthwhile. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye now. Did that go okay? Did you stop recording, Robin?
Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't co-host.